If we flipped the question from being about New Year resolutions to a new you resolution? Instead of bookmarking it, this is my New Year resolution, this year, blank canvas, I'm going to do things differently this year. What if it was about a new you? My name is Gareth. Welcome to Free Church and Happy New Year. We do begin a new series today called January German Jesus. And when it comes to the new year, for many of us, it's a time of possibility, potential. It's like a blank page where there's a canvas where we can put down new ideas and thoughts and all the things we've dreamt about, and we say things to ourselves like, this year, 2023, this is the year that I am going to go to gym. Yes. This is the year, 2023, that I'm going to get my faith journey back on track. So you know what? Sunday the 8th of January, I'm going to church. Yeah, that's some of you in the room. Welcome. It's good to be together this morning. I'm glad you decided you picked a good day to be here with us. We make ourselves promises and commitments, New Year's resolutions, and we tell ourselves stories about how this is going to be the greatest year yet. For others, it's perhaps more to the January side. And we have a hangover from December. We've spent too much money. We've eaten too much. We wake up in January, look at the 52 weeks ahead of us and kind of pull the duvet back over our heads and sigh and go, I don't know if I can do another year. If it was anything like the year that's just been, or the one before that, or the one before that. Wherever you find yourself in those extremes, I have a question for you. So just for all the introverts in the room and online to prepare yourselves, there's a question coming, and I would love to have your participation. It's about New Year resolutions. And if you're watching online, you can drop your answers into the chat or use the comments. For those in the room, this is the question. Are you ready? Yep. Have you ever made a New Year resolution? That's just the first part of the question. The second part is, and actually kept it. If you've done that and can remember what it was, I would love to hear from you. Has anyone in the room made a New Year resolution and actually kept it? What was it? I heard one quiet yes down here. Read the whole Bible, and you did it. Congratulations. So people are excited about that. And if you haven't got any, there's a good one to start. You can put that on your list. Read through the Bible. Anyone else? Yeah?
As a very weird student, I wanted to lift 100 kilos one year. I was very vain, and I did it.
Just to clarify, okay, weird student wanted to bench press, I assume, 100. Bench 100, and he did it. Fantastic. Steve's like, yeah, but come on. Anyone else? So we've got a reading through. We got Jesus and we got Jim. Anything else? Couple down this side. Shout it out. Stop smoking. Yeah, people are excited about that. Congratulations. Well done. Well done. And it was like 1st of January. This year, I'm going to stop smoking. And you did it. It was a New Year resolution. Okay, brilliant. Anyone else? Last one. No one on this side of the room. No one. Your resolution was to not make New Year resolutions. Okay, and have you done that? You've done that. All right, let's see how we go today. Here's the thing that you need to know about New Year resolutions. Number one, they're about 4,000 years old. They began with the Babylonians, and they used to have their New Year festival in mid-March, and it was a big 12-day festival to the god of Akitu. And what they would do is they would make commitments to the gods in return for favor. So the idea was, as they pledged allegiance to a new king, they would make commitments to their gods, believing that if they kept those commitments, they would experience the favor of gods. But if they didn't, they would be punished by the gods. About 2,000 years later, a man called Julius Caesar, who was the emperor of Rome, decided to move New Year's from the middle of March to the 1st of January and renamed the month Janus in honor of their god. And you can do that if you are the emperor of Rome. So suddenly New Year's began on the 1st of January, and he took some of that idea, and they had the same pledging allegiance, recommitting to the gods in return for favor. In the 1700s, a man called John Wesley, who started the Wesleyans, and out of that came the Methodists, he took some of these concepts and ideas and brought it into spirituality so that people who follow Jesus, Christians, would, at the beginning of each year, repledge their devotion to God. Not in return for favor, but just as a commitment to a certain lifestyle. These days, New Year resolutions are mostly about self-improvement. I'm going to do this year. I'm going to do that. I want to be better at something else. And it's become very secular and inward focused. The second thing that you need to know about New Year resolutions is that statistically, they do not work. Research tells us that less than half of us actually take time to sit down at the beginning of the year and write a list of resolutions. Of those who do, most people give up on them within 1 to 6 weeks, claiming lack of motivation. I'm just too busy, or whatever the reason may be. We're very good at coming up with excuses and reasons of why not to follow through on our resolutions. And by the end of each year, perhaps only 10% of those who actually made resolutions see them through. And you saw that today in the room. Just a handful of people have actually made a resolution and followed through on them. So statistically, the bottom line is New Year resolutions, they don't work. And the reason why they don't work is manifold. Here are a few reasons. Often we are not clear on the why behind a resolution. For example, this year, I want to lose weight. Well, why is it that you want to lose weight? Well, I want to be more healthy. Well, is it that you want to be more healthy, or is it because you feel that there's an expectation upon you, put on you by culture to look a certain way? So you take the expectations of culture and put them onto yourself, and you have a goal, which is to lose weight. But actually what you're really talking about is your need for acceptance. And when we're not clear on the why we are doing something, it is very easy to quit. New Year's resolutions that are made in secret or alone are very easy to quit on. If you decide something like, this year I'm going to eat less chocolate, but you only tell yourself about that, it's very easy. When it's just yourself to go, well, it's just me, no one else really knows. So when you make New Year's resolutions alone, they're very difficult to keep. There's no accountability. New Year resolutions that are self or inward focused are very easy to quit on compared to resolutions that help others. So if someone else is involved in your resolution, it's got more sustainability, more staying power. But when it's just about me and myself and there's no one else involved, it's very easy to quit. Here's something that many of us do. We see the beginning of the new year, we take the blank page and we put down all these ideas of everything that we're going to do differently this year, and we just have too many resolutions. So by the end of the week, we're like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm feeling anxious. Let's just quit them all. We have this idea, I'm just going to change everything. This year, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to read the Bible, I'm going to go to gym, I'm going to eat different, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to quit these things. And we can't even remember, what is it that we are actually aiming at? Or perhaps the experience of past failures leads to some self-doubt where you go, well, I've tried this before, and it didn't work, so I'm not going to try it again. And perhaps we just repeat, and the same resolution each year is on the list. And it's there again, but we never actually see it through. Or they're not really a priority for us. They're kind of a nice idea, but it's not like a real priority. I mean, let's be honest. When was the last time that you were just so busy that you forgot to eat? I mean, not like skip a meal. I mean, you forgot to eat for like a day or a week or maybe a month. And you were just like, man, I've just been so busy. I haven't been able to get to my goal of eating. And we treat our resolutions as a lower priority because we don't see them as that valuable. And if we want something to succeed, actually it has to be like on the same priority for us as eating. So we don't just go, well, I'm just too busy to get to that thing which I actually really want to do. Or we set unrealistic resolutions. This year I want to go to the moon. I'm not saying don't dream big, but you need a touch of realism in there, right? We've got to temper it with a little bit of realism. Or we just make resolutions that are very vague. I'm going to be more generous this year. Well, what does that mean? How do you know when you're being generous? How do you measure that? Are you generous when you've decided that you're being more generous? How do you know when you've actually achieved being generous? And there's many reasons why it's very difficult to keep New Year resolutions. Yet within us, there's this desire. I would contend that for most of us in the room, those watching online, for all of us, there's a desire to change something in our lives. There's one area, or perhaps many areas, where if we were really honest about it, we would like to see some change in this area or that area. And New Year's resolution, we've been practicing for 4,000 years and we can't get it right yet. There's like 1 in 20 of us can do it. But why is it that there's this desire for change? Because there's something inherent in us that desires change, that wants to see something different. So, New Year resolutions aside, I want you to take a moment, 1 minute. I'm going to give you a minute. And on each of your chairs, there's a blank page for you, and there should be a pen as well. And we're going to put a timer up on the screen. I'm going to give you a minute, and you can fold the page up. I've given you a whole lot of context and background to things that you should put on your list or shouldn't put on your list, or some ideas of the reasons why they don't work. So from that, you can extrapolate things that could work. But don't put like 20 things on there. Just 1 minute, going to give you 1 minute. And what you're going to do is you're going to be really honest with yourself. You don't have to share this with anyone else. Which is the area of your life or areas of your life where you would like to see some change? And be specific about that. For those of you that are watching online, grab a pen and paper and come back and put down some thoughts. So we're going to give you just 1 minute and put down an area where you would like to see some life change. Your minute begins now. Well, how is that? I see some pens still going. Pens down, everybody, pens down. I'm kidding, it's not an exam. But I hope you've got something on your paper. And again, this is just for you. But I wanted you to take a little bit of time and to deeply reflect on which area in your life you'd like to see some change. For some of you, that might have been a very simple thing to put down. For others, maybe it takes a little bit more time and reflection. You can go home and carry on with that. But the question really is, what if you could see some change in your life? Not just a New Year resolution, but a change that was sustainable, that brought about transformation in your life, that was a possibility for things to be different. That maybe this year, and not limited to this year, but from this point onwards, that things could be different in your life. What if there was a way to not be one of the 20 or the 1 in 20 that can sustain resolutions, but actually to take that and incorporate it into your lifestyle? What if we flipped the question from being about New Year resolutions to a new you resolution? Instead of bookmarking it, this is my New Year resolution, this year, blank canvas, I'm going to do things differently this year. What if it was about a new you, where there was transformation in your life that wasn't something that came through self-discipline, that wasn't something that came through effort, that wasn't something that came through following a strict routine, but actually was a decision that you made and brought about transformation in your life, sustainable change. And really, this is the story of the gospel. This is the story that Jesus invites each of us into, is to take part in a life which recreates us, which makes us new. Within the pages of the Bible, we see the greatest love story ever told. It's about God, who is love, who creates mankind. To be in relationship, to be in community where there's love and acceptance and unity. And part of God's loving kindness towards mankind was to offer the gift of freedom of choice to man. And what we did is we took that gift of love and kind of scrumpled it up and threw it back in God's face and said, God, we don't want your love. Actually, what we want is to do things our way. We don't want to do things your way, God, but we will make our own choices and live according to the way that we want to live. And in that moment, the relationship between God and man was fractured. It was shattered. No doing of God's part, but purely from a rebellious heart, which each of us carry the after effects of. Yet God loved you so much that He instituted a rescue mission out of His love for you and His concern for you. And He Himself became human in Jesus and came to earth. And Jesus came to be God revealed, to be love revealed to us, to me and you, to everyone who walks the earth, to see what God is like, to experience His love. And lovingly, He gave His life on the cross in your place, in my place, so that those who would want to take a hold of this invitation of love, this rescue mission, may be saved from this broken world which we are in because of our own choices. This is the love story that God gives to us and that we find within the pages of Scripture. And each of us, we have again a free choice to accept God's gracious gift of love to us. And what that involves is repentance. It's a turning away from one thing and it's a looking to something else. And it's a taking hold of God's love and experiencing that and becoming like Jesus, becoming love to those around us. And this is the story that we see in the pages of Scripture. It's a love story. And the way to sustainable change, the way to be transformed, is not through self-discipline, it's not through behavior management, it's not through setting goals, it's not through reprioritizing things. We've seen how that doesn't work for us. The way the transformation comes is through experiencing love. And when you experience the love of God, and you let it change you, what happens over time? You become more like Jesus. And as you become more and more like Jesus, it's not that your life gets better, that it becomes easier, that you have everything that you ever want, but you find a deeper satisfaction, a purpose, a meaning, a fulfillment, and you become love to other people. Don Miller, in his book, Blue Like Jazz, he said this beautiful thing. He said that our behavior will not be changed long by self-discipline, but fall in love, and a human will accomplish what he never thought possible. If you want to see change in your life, you need to fall in love with Jesus. And when you fall in love with Jesus, change starts to happen. Sustainable change. Change that you can't understand. Change that goes something like this. I used to be like that, and now I'm like this, and I cannot explain it. It doesn't come through practices. It doesn't come through behaviors. It doesn't come through trying harder. It comes through the transforming power of God's love in our lives. So I want to share with you 3 keys out of the book of Proverbs, Proverbs chapter 3, which I was reading in preparation for this. 3 keys of how to actually embrace this love, how to see sustainable change happen in your life. On that sheet, the things that you wrote down, the areas, perhaps you're looking at them and going, well, maybe these are a little insignificant now, but I want to tell you that the reason they're there is because God has probably put something in your heart which He wants to bring out in you, and the way that it's going to happen is from you experiencing the love of God for you and understanding that Jesus loves you and He wants the best for you. And as you lean into this, so His love begins to transform you, and you actually see the changes that you may not even know that you want in your life. This is not about New Year's resolutions, but really the story of the gospel is about becoming a new you, a new creation, by the transforming power of God's love. So I'm going to give you 3 keys that you can take and you can apply and put them onto your list, and you can work on these things, not just for this year, but from here on out. And I'll give them to you up front, and then we're going to read Proverbs 3, just a few verses together out of Proverbs 3, and then we'll unpack some of those things. The first thing is to activate your faith in Jesus. I will come back to them. I'll just show you where we're going. We're going to activate your faith, help you to activate your faith in Jesus. And then acknowledge Jesus in everything that you do. And then the last one, which is really 2 things, but it goes together in one verse in Proverbs 3, so I think we can count it as one, is to adore Jesus and avoid evil. Avoid anything that's wrong. So let's go to Proverbs chapter 3. I'm going to read from verse 5. I'm going to read from the TPT, and some of you may know these verses. It sounds a little bit different, but I love the way that it's unpacked here. So Proverbs 3, verse 5, it says, "Trust in the Lord completely, and do not rely on your own opinions." For some of us, we could just leave it right there. We don't. Do not rely on your own opinions. With all your heart, rely on Him to guide you, and He will lead you in every decision you make. Become intimate with Him in whatever it is that you do, and He will lead you wherever you go. Don't think for a moment that you know it all, for wisdom comes when you adore Him with undivided attention, devotion, and avoid everything that's wrong. And then you will find the healing refreshment that your body and spirit long for. Then you will find the healing change that your body and spirit long for. Then you will discover the answer to the things, the areas in your life where you want to see change. The way that you do that is, number one, to activate your faith in Jesus. Trust in Him completely. And do not rely on your own opinions. With all your heart, rely on Him to guide you, and He will lead you in every decision that you make. Some years ago, I got to go on a training camp with a team that I worked with. And they took us to the Sinai Peninsula. And one of the activities that we got to do was to go rock climbing and abseiling. I've got a picture of it, and you can have a look at some of the mountains that we had to climb up and down. You can see the Land Rover in the bottom. It's these I was imagining Moses and the Israelites around there, and we kind of wondering where they were. But I don't know if any of you have ever been rock climbing or abseiling. But it is kind of the sheer vertical wall in front of you when you're climbing up. And there's a term in rock climbing and abseiling called when you belay someone. And what it is someone else has a rope. It's basically your life in their hands, holding onto a rope that helps you climb, or as you're climbing up, if you slip, you don't fall too far. Like you just fall like a meter or two, but not all the way down the mountain. And if you're abseiling down, and as you go over the edge, they're belaying you so that as you step over the edge, if you just kind of let go and you just swing back against, you'll live. You'll be fine. You might have a few scratches, bumps, and bruises, but you will not die. And for those who go for the very first time, if you have to climb this mountain, you've got to put some trust. You've got to put some faith in the person who's holding the rope and in the rope itself. That if you take a step and slip, that they have got you. But you don't know that they've actually got you until you slip and fall. Until you step over the edge when you're abseiling down, until you step into that big, like cavernous, what you can't see below, until you take that step, that leap of faith, if you will, you won't know that they actually have you. This is what it's like to trust God. Is we have to take a step to know that He has got us in everything that we do. To trust the Lord completely and not our own opinions. This is what faith is we put our belief and our trust in things that we can't see, in things that don't make sense. And is it scary? Yes. Might you fall? Yes. Will you get bumps and bruises and scratches? Probably. Will you die? No. God's got you. He belays you. He belays you. And you are called, if you want to see change in your life, to activate your faith, your trust, your belief in the things that you can't see and the things that can't make sense, to understand that actually God is crazy about you, and He's got you, and He loves you, and He wants the best for you. And the biggest hurdle that many of us have in our faith journey is actually to cross this bridge of unbelief, to understand that God is crazy about you, that He loves you, that He wants the best for you. Why do we battle so much with this? Because we judge God by the things that we see rather than the things that we don't see. But when you put your trust in Him, your faith in Jesus, and it's even in things that you can't see, then you begin to realize that God has you. So the first way to bring about sustainable change in your life is to activate your faith and to tell yourself over and over again that God has got me, God loves me, even though it doesn't look like it, even though it doesn't make sense, it might be scary, but He has got me. He is crazy about me, and He wants His love to be experienced by me and to change and transform me. The second way to activate, or not to activate your faith, but to bring about change in your life, is to acknowledge God in everything that you do. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. I went to Angola many times And Luanda probably has the worst traffic that I've seen. And maybe there's some cities out there with worse traffic, but if you've ever been to Luanda in Angola, the traffic is an absolute nightmare. I mean, it's so bad that even if you wanted to walk, you couldn't get out of the car because there's like no space between the cars to actually walk or to open your door. Like you just sit in traffic from the airport to wherever you're going. It's just traffic. It's gridlock the whole time. But it's normal for everyone that lives there. So the first time I arrived, I said to the guy who was driving the car, as we're driving along, is it always like this? He's like, yeah, it's just traffic. It's normal. It's part of life. It takes you about literally 3 hours to go wherever you want to go. And as we were kind of crawling along through the city, I noticed traffic lights were at the intersections, and they were working. Like green, orange, red, similar traffic lights to the ones that we have here. No one's paying attention to them, though. Just whoever gets there first gets to go, and you kind of just push your way in. And I said to the person, what's up with these traffic lights? And he said, well, after the Civil War, there was very little infrastructure, but in about 2010, the government decided to roll out traffic lights. So they installed traffic lights throughout the downtown of Luanda. But no one knew what they were really for or how they worked, so everyone just ignores them. They're there, and everyone just carries on as normal. So they have traffic lights and pointsmen. And the pointsmen stand in the middle of the intersections at peak hour, which is pretty much all day, and try to help the cars move along. And I was thinking about this, of how sometimes we don't acknowledge God in everything that we do, but we rather view him like a traffic signal or a pointsman who's somewhere out there. And we live our lives kind of going, well, I'm waiting for God to give me the green light. And then I'm waiting for a sign. I'm waiting for God to tell me which way to go. I'm waiting for God to tell me if I should go this way or if I should go that way. I'm waiting on God. And I think a lot of us in our language, we use a lot of this type of thing. I'm waiting on God. I'm waiting on God. And I'm not saying don't consult God, because Proverbs says, acknowledge him in everything that you do. But I wonder sometimes if we put the responsibility on God when it's actually a responsibility on us. Let me give you an example. Something goes wrong in our lives, which we know deep down is because we've messed up. But to sound like super spiritual and holy, we'll say, well, God just closed that door. Did he? Did he? Or was it just like your poor performance? I mean, let's be honest. Which one was it? I wonder if sometimes we say, well, I'm just waiting on God, to open the door for me. And it's like, are you? I think he's already given you the green light. Like, why don't you just get up and take a step forward? No, I'm just waiting for God to provide for me. And I'm not saying that God can't provide in miraculous ways, or that God can't open doors or close doors. But do you see that sometimes we may live our lives seeing God out there to give us signs to go this way or that way, and we're kind of stuck in the chaos of life, like stuck in that traffic, and hoping that God will tell us go here and go there. Like we want him to spell it out for us where we should go. And that's not the story that I see in the Bible. I see the teachings of Jesus to be way more like God is in the car with you, like a navigator, like a co-pilot who's there to have a conversation with you rather than to control your life with open and closed doors. And I think God is way more about relationship with you than about rigid religion where he's saying you need to do this now and do that now. I think the conversations with God should go more like this. Hey God, I'm thinking about going this way. What do you think? And God's like, well, I'm up for an adventure. Let's go and see what happens. Whichever way you go, I am with you because I have got you. I would put to you that God has already given you the green light, that he's sitting in the passenger seat waiting for you to start the engine and to move forward. And on the way, you have a conversation about him like, hey, God, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? Give me your perspective. Give me your insights. Acknowledge him in conversation in everything that you do, rather than box him in to be a pointsman out there or a traffic light there that gives you a red light or a green light or a slow down or a caution or don't do this and don't do that. God's way more conversational than controlling. He's way more relational than rigid. And if you want to see change come in your life, it's not going to come from God giving you a red light or a green light or opening this door or closing this door. It's going to come from a conversation with him next to you about what step are you going to take. And I'll show you, I'll prove it to you, because in this verse that we read and in your Bibles, you will see this too. It says, become intimate with him in whatever you do, and he will lead you wherever you go. It doesn't say, and he will lead you where he wants you to go. It says, he will lead you wherever you go. Do you see there's a tension? There's a partnership. God will lead you, but you're doing the going. God will help you navigate, but it's up to you to drive. God will help you figure out where to go, but it's up to you to make the decision. And I wonder if far too often we put the responsibility for our apathy, inactivity, delays, poor performance on God and say, well, God didn't open that door, God closed that one, I'm just waiting on God. Could 2023 be the year where we shift things and say, well, let's acknowledge God in everything that we do and just have a conversation with Him about it? And what's going to happen as you do that is you're going to become more like Jesus. And when you become more like Jesus, you're going to see change in your life that is sustainable. So I want to encourage you to activate your faith in Jesus, to acknowledge Jesus in everything that you do, and He will lead you where you go. And lastly, is to adore Jesus and avoid anything that's wrong. So, well, that sounds easy, right? This is what Proverbs says to us, is don't think for a moment that you know it all. For wisdom comes when you adore Him with undivided devotion and avoid everything that's wrong. These two things, they go together. Sometimes we can have the idea that following Jesus is just about doing everything right, but really what it's about is turning towards Jesus. And as you turn your life towards Jesus, what happens is you have to turn away from something. So when you want to start something new, you have to quit something else. So following Jesus means quitting some things in your life. And sometimes we try to keep the things that we should quit and have Jesus in our life, but it says undivided devotion. So when we turn our lives to Jesus, inherently what happens is over time is we begin to avoid things that are wrong. And sometimes we think, well, we have to avoid everything that's wrong and then we can follow Jesus. No, as you turn towards Jesus, what happens is you begin to avoid things in your life that are wrong. There was a famous Catholic priest called Henry Nouwen. He lived in the 1900s, and as he was starting out being a Catholic priest, he decided to go and visit Mother Teresa to get some advice. I think she's a good person to ask advice from. And he went to her and he said, as I begin this journey of a priest, and he wrote this in one of his books, he said, what is your advice to me? What should I do? And she said, well, spend 1 hour a day in adoration of your Lord and avoid anything that you know is wrong. And if you do this, you'll be fine. And I've heard that before, but only this week did I see actually what she's talking about is Proverbs 3. It's right there. She's saying Proverbs 3 to us. And spend adoration in Jesus. And what's going to happen as you do that is you're going to avoid anything that's wrong. And that's going to bring about healthy and good change, sustainable change, transformative change in your life. You go, well, how do you do that? How do you adore Jesus? So let me give you a thought, an idea, and you don't have to wait till tomorrow to do this. You can do this today. You can go home and open your Bible. If you haven't got a Bible, I've got lots. Send me an email, meet me afterwards. I'll give you one of my Bibles or whatever. You can download one. Get yourself a Bible. Open it up to the book of Matthew, the first book of the New Testament, and take a paper and a pen and just start to read until you find a miracle that Jesus does. And write down what it was and where it is in Matthew. And then carry on reading and find another miracle. Some of you have never done a Bible study before. This is like your first Bible study. It's very easy. And just write down all the miracles of Jesus that you can find. And when you finish Matthew, go to the next book, Mark, and do the same thing. Read through Mark and find the miracles that Jesus did and just write them down. What happened? And where it happened. And then go to Luke and go to John. And before you know it, you would have been through 4 books of the Bible and you would have found all the miracles that Jesus did. And then you've got this list, and what it's doing for you, it's teaching you about who Jesus is and His love and compassion for people and how He heals and pulls in the outcasts and the broken and the hurting and how He fights against people that are religious. And He pushes back against that and He leads with His love. You don't have to do that all in one day. I mean, you can find one miracle today and one tomorrow and one the next day, or you can find 10 today. Up to you. You do it at your pace. But this is a very practical way to start to cultivate in your life an adoration for Jesus. Because the only way that you can begin to adore someone is to get to know Him. And the way that you get to know Him is to read the stories about Him by the people who walked with Him and lived with Him. And I think as you start to do that and you go on this journey of adoring Jesus, you're going to see some things in your life are going to start to shift and going to change. And before you know it, you're going to have a different perspective, an idea of who Jesus is and the love that he brings and the story that he invites you into. So as we close up this time together, I want to ask you to take that list again, the paper that you wrote down on. Some of you that didn't write anything, now's your moment. Now you can quickly take your paper. And in light of these thoughts, these ideas about activating your faith and acknowledging Jesus in everything that you do, about adoring Jesus and avoiding everything that's wrong, what is the one thing on that list? The one thing that maybe needs to be tweaked or changed? What is the one thing that's kind of leaping off the page at you? And maybe there's some things on there that you've got to cross out and other things that you've got to add back in. But really what I want to get you to is just to one thing. One decision that you make today. And then whatever that is, I want to encourage you to tell someone about that. Whatever that thing is, whatever that decision is to find somebody in your life, maybe it's in your life group, maybe it's someone sitting next to you and just say, hey, this is the one thing that I'm going to do differently from today. And maybe it's to begin to activate your faith in a certain way. Maybe it's to acknowledge God and to change your perspective. Maybe it's to begin to adore Jesus. Hey, maybe it's hey, I'm going to go home and I'm going to do that Miracle Matthew thing, that Bible study, I'm going to do that. That's my thing. That's cool. Pick one thing and tell one person about what it is. And as you lean into this story, what's going to happen is over time your life is going to start to change. And it may not happen all at once, it probably won't, but slowly, as you lean into the story of Jesus, you're going to become more like Jesus. And that's what the power of love does.